All right, we're going to go ahead and start lesson 2 in unit 3. We'll start on page 3. This will look familiar to you because we did this in unit 2 again. But we're going to go from page 3 to 7. Okay? So you're going to take a lot of what you learned from unit 2, and we're going to use it now to be able to find if what we are given or what we have is a factor. Okay? So the first thing you always want to look at, remember, factor or your options for factoring. When you have two terms, sum and difference of cubes, difference of squares. And remember, you've got your formulas here. If there's three terms, you have the X method. You can also put in there quadratic formula. The only problem with that is if you have a negative under the square root, it's not going to solve for you. So you have to do that by hand. And of course, if you have four terms, there is the grouping. All right, so factors and remainder theorems. We're going to factor and see if the roots that we have, or if what we are given the factor that we have, if it is truly a root. Okay? So a polynomial f of x has a factor x minus k. If and only if you get 0. Okay? So we're going to see if r minus 3 is a factor of r cubed minus 3r squared plus 6r minus 18. So the first thing that we're going to look at, you have a couple options here. You can take and do the long division. You can do synthetic division. However, I prefer to do the synthetic. All right? Now, if you recall doing synthetic division, we have the upside down house or four, whatever you want to call it. We're going to take the coefficients and the constant, and we're going to put them on the inside. So we have a 1, we have a negative 3, we have a 6, and then we have a negative 18. And what do we divide by? We have our r minus 3, but we have to change that sign. So instead of negative 3, it's positive 3. Now, using synthetic division, remember we bring down the 1. We multiply the 3 by whatever comes out. So 3 times 1 is 3. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. 3 times 0, that's going to give us 0. So 6 plus 0 is 6. And again, 3 times 6 is 18. Negative 18 plus 18 is 0. So, is it a factor? Yes, because it is telling us, the factor theorem is telling us that it is a factor if it equals 0 right here. So, yes, this is a factor. Okay? Let's look at the next one. The remainder theorem. If a polynomial f of x is divided by x minus k, then the remainder is r equals f of k. What is the remainder when we divide x cubed plus 2 by x minus 1? Again, let's do synthetic division. The only problem with this one, don't forget, we have, here's what we're supposed to divide, or you'd be using to divide, but we're missing some terms, so we've got to fill it in there, okay? So our constant is 2, our x cubed is 1, and we need an x squared and an x. What value could we plug in that would not change what we have if we add or subtract it? And that is 0. And then we're going to divide by, not the positive 1, but a negative 1. So we'll bring down that 1. Negative 1 times 1, negative 1. 0 minus 1, negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is a positive 1. So we get positive 1, negative 1 times positive 1 is a negative 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. So this asks us what our remainder is. So our remainder is 1. So what is always left right here is our remainder, and that's what we're getting our information from. That's what we want to know. Okay? All right, divide this factor using synthetic division. We've already been doing that. Okay? What do you notice, though, about our factor? Or our polynomial, sorry. What do you notice about the polynomial? 2x cubed plus 3x squared plus 1 minus 5x. It is not in standard form. So we need to make sure that when we're writing it down, we put it in standard form. So the x cubed is the biggest, so the 2 goes first. Then we've got x squared, so 3. 1 is our constant, so 1 would go over here to the right of our little line. And then we have the negative 5x, so a negative 5. And we're going to divide by a positive 1. Bring down that 2. 1 times 2. 3 plus 2 is 5. 1 times 5. Negative 5 plus 5 is 0. 1 times 0. 1 plus 0 is 1. So our remainder is 1. So in our factor and remainder theorem, x minus 1 would not be a factor of 2x cubed plus 3x squared plus 1 minus 5x. All right? All right, I want you to pause it and see if you can try these. You know synthetic division, we've been doing it. And then see if you get unpause the video and see if you get the same thing that I did. Okay? Remember, make sure that they're in standard form and make sure you're using the right numbers, okay? So if I look at this one, I have a 2, a 2, a 1, a negative 1, negative 1, I'm going to divide by negative 1. So bring down that 2, it's negative 2, negative 1 times 0 is 0, negative 1 and negative 1, sorry, negative 1 and positive 1, negative 2 and negative 1, so I end up with 1. So this is what you should have got as a remainder of 1. All right, try the next one. So we've got 1, 2, negative 5, 3, negative 1. We're going to divide by positive 1. So 1 and 1 gives me 1. 1 and 3 gives me 3. 1 and negative 2 gives me negative 2. 1 and 1 gives me 1. There you go. So our remainder is 0. All right, so polynomial and a factor of f are given. Factor completely. All right, so I want you to go back and look real quick at the ones that we've done now. And I want you to tell me, based on what we wrote, make sure. Okay, so if I look at this one, my remainder is 1. So this would be a no. No, x plus 1 is not a factor. Our reason behind that is right here. The remainder is 1. Look at the next one. X minus 1 is not a factor. Again, the reason being our remainder is 1. Here we have x plus 1. I'm going to change my color. So x plus 1 is not a factor. And again, the reason being the remainder is 1. All right, the next one we have x minus 1 is a factor. And it is a factor because our remainder is 0. So anytime you get 0 right here, that is going to be a factor always. Okay? All right, now, it's wanting us to factor this one, so we'll use synthetic division, and it wants us to factor it completely. So that is telling me that this is a factor. This x minus 5, I better get 0 as a remainder. Okay? So I have a 1, 9, negative 37, negative 165. And then I'm going to divide by 5. So bring down the 1, that's 5, 14, 70, 70 minus 37 is 33, 33 times 5 should be 165, and it is, so that should give me 0. All right, so we've got our first factor, but this is wanting us to factor this completely. Now remember when we did synthetic division, this actually goes down 1 exponent. So we started out with x cubed, so this is going to be an x squared. This is going to be an x, and that's the 33 will be my constant. So x squared plus 14x plus 33. Now I'm back to a polynomial of 3. If I look back, my options of factoring this is x method or quadratic formula. Now, let me extend my page a little bit so I have a little bit more room. If I do x method with this, is there anything that I can multiply to get 33 and add to get 14? So 3 and 11. So if I add those, I get 14. If I multiply those, I get 33. So my factors are x plus 3, x plus 11. And then I don't want to forget the factor that was given to me, so x minus 5. I have factored it completely. Okay? So we use 2 things that we did last unit to be able to factor completely. Okay? All right, try this one. Now, this one is telling me, and one catch before you try this one on your own, it's telling me negative 2 is a factor. So I'm going to divide by negative 2. All right? It's not saying x plus 2. When it's given to me like that, I use what is given. All right, so 4, 8, 25, negative 25, negative 50. We're going to divide by negative 2. So 4, negative 8, negative 25, 50, and they are correct. Negative 2 is a factor. Now remember, we go down 1 exponent degree. So this becomes x squared and this becomes x. So if I rewrite this, 4x squared, I don't have to put that 0 there, minus 25. If you look at this, it's two terms. So I have two options, sum and difference of cubes. However, my exponent is a 2. So I'm going to go and see if it's a difference of squares. I am subtracting. 4 is a perfect square, 25 is a perfect square. So it is a difference of squares. So square root of 2x squared is 2x. The square root of 25 is 5. And remember, 1 is plus, 1 is minus. And we have one more factor. Remember, we always change the sign here. So it should be, instead of a negative 2 and a factor, it should be a positive 2. And there you go. All right, so that is the last one for this lesson. I want you to try this, practice it really good. And if you have any questions, just refer back. You're just doing the synthetic division. When it's asking you if it's a factor, you're going to give me a yes or no answer. When it says factor completely, after you do synthetic, then you are going to do one of the types of factoring.